Shalom. Shalom and welcome. Welcome to White Rose family. My name is Symmanayah, and these are the words that I am compelled to present before an awakening nation. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. Let me say this, my brothers and sisters. End times are real. The promises made by the Almighty Father are unfolding before our very eyes. This is part of the playlist, the series called Restoring Dominion. This is part 4 of Restoring Dominion. And as you can see, if you are looking at the slide, it brings focus to the rise of Yahusha. Rise of Yahusha, the Almighty Yahuah's word. My brothers and sisters, make no mistake, the battle is getting intense. But we have success, or some would say victory, by the blood of the Lamb, Yahusha, by the power and might of the Almighty Father. Let me say this, my brothers and sisters, before I get into part 4 of Restoring Dominion. Many of us want to demonstrate power, the power of the Almighty Father. Many of us want to demonstrate the strength and fortitude of a true set-apart one walking filled with the Spirit. Many of us desire the love, the comfort, the strength, the protection, the lifestyle that the Almighty Father can provide for us now and in the coming days. There are many things that we want, but we fail to recognize there are so many things we take for granted. We fight against the obedient ones of the Almighty Father to protect our egos, our pride. We fail to admit where we don't know, where we are weak, not realizing if we admit where we are weak, it makes room for someone used by the Almighty Father, or directly the Almighty Father, bringing healing and strength and correction. We take for granted the blood of the Lamb of Yahusha. It is as though many people would just say, Yah this, Yah that, Yahuah this, Yahuah that. Make no mistake, I am not making light of the Almighty Father's name, Yahuah. But what I'm saying is as though many people have taken Yahusha and say, I believe in Yahusha. Yes, I believe in the sacrifice and resurrection. But then we take Yahusha and just set him to the side, and we go to the written text and say Yahusha himself told us to look to the Father. But we disregard when the taught ones, commonly known as disciples, asked him to show us the Father, and he said, have I not been with you? We disregard where it says that Yahuah's word is manifest in the flesh, in the person of Yahusha, that he is indeed the embodiment of Yahuah's word presented before us. There are details, there are processes, and all the things that are necessary for us to complete what we are tasked to do, O Yashar'al. Many of us want all the good things, but not want to go through the process to get to that point. My brothers and sisters, restoring dominion, the Most High will prove to awaken us, to make known the power he gave us from the very beginning as individuals. He will awaken us to the dominion that we have as his children, as led by him, through Yahusha Mashyach's Spirit working in us and through us, as it is written. We will come to understand what restoring dominion means. And the rise of Yahusha is paramount to recognizing that. My brothers and sisters, let me read the following before I go further into this segment, part 4 of Restoring Dominion. Warning and disclaimer. The information contained in White Rose family represent instructions and warnings to individuals who believe they are drawn by the Almighty Creator Yahuah to Yahusha Mashyach. If this does not describe you, then this message is not directed to you. If you are one who believes you are drawn by the Almighty Father to Yahusha Mashyach, as it is written, then these words are for you and to you, my brothers and sisters. The content presented centers around end-time realities. Please be advised this site is not intended for children under 16 years of age due to its content. That's to be compliant with the media platform that I'm using, my brothers and sisters. Make no mistake, Isaiah 55, any word from the Almighty Father, it will reach the ears of all that he has designated it to reach. By continuing forward, you agree to hold Symmanayah harmless of any influence in or actions that arise as a result of watching, listening, and reviewing the content presented. The views expressed do not reflect the owners, management, and or shareholders of this media platform. With that said, let us proceed, my brothers and sisters. Restoring dominion. Rise of Yahusha. You see, my brothers and sisters, Yahusha, the name Yahusha means Yahuah saves, or Yahuah's salvation. It is important to recognize when we say Yahusha, we are acknowledging the plan of the Almighty Father. We are acknowledging the life that we have received from the Almighty Father by Yahusha HaMashiach, by his word, by him manifesting himself before us. And many will say Yahusha can't be Yahuah because he died. And I submit to you, it is important to recognize the definition of death. There's a physical death that does not erase the spirit of a person. And that he who is the Almighty One came and manifest in the flesh to demonstrate to us how we are to pray to him that is spirit everywhere at all times. You cannot have Yahusha without Yahuah. You cannot have Yahuah without Yahusha. For they are indeed one. And those who are drawn in these last days will grow to understand why we must recognize the importance of the rise of Yahusha. For as it is written in the scriptures, where Yahusha said, if he be lifted up, he'll draw all men to himself. Who have recognized or ever experienced being in darkness, and where you saw light, you begin to walk towards that light, whether it be from one room to the next, down the street, from one city to the next. Who have ever experienced a blackout and had a desire to look for light? Who can confirm that in a blackout, people will step outside their apartment, their house, their tent, to look around to see if anyone else have light? And they will be looking for the light. In other words, my point is this. And looking to the light of the world, which is Yahusha, when we look at him, all eyes are beginning to focus and migrate towards the light. We have many practical examples, O Yashar'al. Even the light as being set apart truth. When we hunger and thirst after truth, and we meet others that hunger and thirst after truth, we find ourselves coming together because we are put in a position to share like-minded desire. And I'm saying this in reference to seeking to do the will of the Almighty Father. Yahusha must be risen. He is not to be acknowledged and set to the side. And soon and very soon, those who say who believe that they're fooling someone, those who believe they are, okay, I'm playing it safe. I'm not going to say Yahusha or Yeshua, Yehoshua. I'm just playing it safe and just say Yah. It's not about playing it safe, my brothers and sisters. It's about discerning and rising up with the strength and fortitude of recognizing the name in which one is saved, the name which brings life before us. How do you think we can be restored in dominion if we cannot recognize the doorway, the gateway, the bridge? He that restores us into life, which is Yahusha HaMashiach. My brothers and sisters, come with me as I read the following. You see, O Yashar'al, the Almighty Yahuah's word, the importance of lifting Yahusha. If we cannot embrace and understand this, we will miss out on a lot of sequences. And let me just do a sidebar. Some of you might be wondering the different colors that I use. And I've attached them with different feast times. Make no mistake, the rainbow colors came before there was ever LGBTQ. Colors came before man was in existence. It is the Almighty Father who landscaped the planet, the flowers and the trees, the land, the seas, with colors. So make no mistake, my brothers and sisters. And I have been compelled to believe that I have been given permission to use brown as a color to signify harvest, a time when others start getting, a time that moved beyond the first fruits. So just a sidebar, getting back to restoring dominion, part 4, the rise of Yahusha. Consider these words, O Yashar'al. John 12:31 through 33 reads, now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world shall be cast out. And if I am lifted up from the earth, shall draw all men to myself. This he said, signifying by what death he was about to die. My brothers and sisters, I want to take a moment to clean this slide up. So bear with me, my brothers and sisters. As I go to this segment, it's something that since I recognized it at this point, I want to take the moment to clean it up. So bear with me, my brothers and sisters. These are some serious times. There's a lot of noise among individuals who desire to grow strong, who desire to do the will of the Almighty Father. There is a lot of noise. Trying to discern who's right, what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to do it. But make no mistake, my brothers and sisters. The Almighty Father understands. He knows the intent, the very intent of each of us. He knows what task he has put before us and what it takes for us to obey, to discern and obey such tasks. My brothers and sisters, true comfort comes from the Almighty Father. And we will discern in these coming days that comfort comes from knowing, understanding what must and will be done. You see, there is no need to fret regarding things that must be done, my brothers and sisters, for that will not change the manner in which the Most High responds to us and works in us and through us, even one towards another. We will discover some of the most fascinating and phenomenal things in the coming of days, Yashar'al. There will be times of pain, but there will be times of comfort. There will be times where we will shout, hallelujah. My brothers and sisters, yes, praising him moment by moment. There will be times when we will weep. My brothers and sisters, throughout all the challenges that we face, it is so important for us to never discredit, set to the side, take for granted the blood of the Lamb. At least we find ourselves in a position where we are encapsulated or surrounded by grief, depression, self-condemnation. The Almighty Yahuah's word, the importance of lifting Yahusha. Notice that he said, if I am lifted up from the earth, I shall draw all men to myself. We are to focus on Yahusha, my brothers and sisters, and we will learn why it is important. We will learn during these end times as we find ourselves being humbled. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, knowing our everlasting life, knowing how our everlasting life is made possible is critical. For us to embrace the strength of the inner man, for us to recognize we are not to seek to gain our own lives, for in doing so we will lose them. For us to know the full strength of when it says, he who seeks to lose his life for Yahusha's sake shall gain life everlasting. For us to understand that, we must recognize and know how our everlasting life is made possible. This is critical, my brothers and sisters. It's made possible by Yahusha Mashyach. And these are the days where we must and we will, those who will be emerging among the 144,000, those who will be emerging as one of the set-apart children of Yahuah that is part of the great multitude, what is mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter, we will recognize why we must lift up Yahusha. Why in lifting up Yahusha we will discern the spirit within the spirit. The spirit of Yahusha within our spirit, joined together. We will discern the oneness of one another. Your inward man, my inward man, together Yashar'al, an awakening set-apart nation. In order to recognize this, Yahusha must be lifted up. Yahusha will make known and make clear. He will remind us. He will teach us. He will comfort us. For it is written that this is the process. This is the order. This is the sequence that the Almighty Father has laid out in his plan. To ignore that will show individuals struggling, misstepping more than should. In some cases, it will lead to some being led astray. So I say to you, O Yashar'al, we must lift up Yahusha, and we do so by our obedience to the Almighty Father, as his word is made alive before us, as the scriptures are made alive before us. As we move to obey, move forward in obeying the Ten Commandments, the laws, the statutes, we recognize there are other instructions that are given that if gone ignored come with consequences. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, remember these words. And know the power of Abba Yahuah's spirit, my brothers and sisters. John 6:43 and 6:44 says, Then Yahusha answered and said to them, do not grumble with one another. You see, my brothers and sisters, we shouldn't be grumbling. We shouldn't be mumbling. We shouldn't be saying, I'm going to play it safe. We must understand, and we will, those who will fulfill end-time prophecies, those who will be martyrs for Yahusha's name, specifically as it is written, my brothers and sisters. Speak the truth and press on. Do not debate and argue with anyone. It goes on to say here in John 6:44, no one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I shall raise him up in the last day. To be raised up, my brothers and sisters, we must lift up Yahusha. For in lifting up Yahusha, he raised us up. We must realize, my brothers and sisters, it is the Father who draws us to Yahusha. It is like he's saying, this is my plan. Acknowledge my plan. Obey and walk in my plan, and you shall be raised up And that last day, my brothers and sisters, is soon to come. We must recognize the power of lifting up Yahusha. And I say that is done by obedience. Consider John 4:23 and 24. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father also does seek such to worship him. The Almighty One is spirit, and those who worship him need to worship in spirit and in truth. If you continue to read in that passage, you will find, my brothers and sisters, if you continue to study John, you will see in the 14th chapter, my brothers and sisters, where the Father sent his set-apart spirit in Yahusha's name. And I mention this often, and if you're new for the first time or you are drawing a blank, consider John 14:26, when Yahusha is quoted as saying, the helper, the set-apart spirit whom the Father shall send in my name, he shall teach you all and remind you of all that I've said to you. My brothers and sisters, there are those who will say, well, if Yahusha and Yahuah are one and their name means the same, then I can keep saying Yah. Don't play games, my brothers and sisters. Don't fall for the trickery of the wicked one. The Almighty Father Yahuah desires us to acknowledge him, his word before us as Yahusha. That is acknowledging his plan, his process, his sequence for us to be restored into life, for us to fully begin to understand what it means to experience being restored into the dominion that he had given us from the very beginning. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. Let me continue with these words. Proverbs 1:7 say, the fear of Yahuah is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. Do I mention this often? Indeed, I do. For such a time as this, we must understand that we seek the knowledge that is necessary for us to govern ourselves according to the Almighty Father's direction, his living instructions, and what is written. The fear of Yahuah, this is where the beginning of knowledge. People are going to the far extreme to say, I don't fear anything. We should fear Yahuah. In fearing him, we pause, we walk in caution, we walk circumspect, we walk in wisdom towards those without. We seek to respond as we believe we are directed. Proverbs 14:26 says, in the fear of Yahuah is strong trust, and his children have a place of refuge. My brothers and sisters, key words for end times: knowledge, wisdom, discipline, trust, refuge. The need to fear the Almighty Yahuah is ever so growing to bring us into discipline, O Yashar'al. Let me continue. My brothers and sisters, remember why it is important to discern the voice of Yahusha. Remember, one thing that is critical that we don't hear people talk about as much is that discerning the voice of the Spirit of Yahusha, because we busy saying the Most High, the Almighty One, the Ruach. And I'm not saying those are wrong, but we must acknowledge the label at the gate, at the door. We must acknowledge the name in which we receive everlasting life, and that name is indeed Yahusha. Consider Philippians 1:8-11. For the Almighty One is my witness, how I long for you all with the affection of Yahusha Messiah. And this I pray, that your love might extend more and more in knowledge and all discernment. For you to examine the matters that differ, in order to be sincere and not stumbling until the day of Messiah, being filled with the fruit of righteousness through Yahusha Messiah, to the esteem and praise of the Almighty One. You see, my brothers and sisters, we are instructed to examine matters. And if they are different, examine why. Seek the truth and walk in the truth. Seek the truth and yield to correction when necessary. If we find ourselves out of the truth. Yashar'al, restoring dominion. Restoring the power of a set-apart nation requires understanding many dynamics, many details, many processes. My brothers and sisters, we will recognize how to obey the living orders and guidance from Yahusha Mashyach. Make no mistake, the Almighty Father does not task us with things without equipping us with the tools, the strength, the fortitude, the guidance from the Spirit of Yahusha. From Him, my brothers and sisters. He will not task us without giving us all that we need to do what is expected. Yashar'al, what say you? Let me continue. Consider the life of these words, my brothers and sisters. Ephesians 5:18 through 21. Do not be drunk with wine, which is loose behavior, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to each other in psalms and songs and praise and spiritual songs, singing and striking the strings in your heart to the Master. Let me pause for a minute, my brothers and sisters. How many people understand when they say speaking to each other in psalms? Psalms are prayers, my brothers and sisters, praying for one another. Songs are two or more. Well, no, it doesn't have to be two or more. Songs are words that conveyed with music, a melody, a harmony. Songs brings about a sound that can bring about comfort. Songs of praise can be words presented in a manner in which it makes us shout hallelujah. How many people have heard someone sing and found their spirit being stirred? Makes them want to praise the Almighty Father. It is not confusion. It is something with order. Spiritual songs, my brothers and sisters, that stirs us up and moves us to be obedient. It says singing and striking the strings in your heart to the Master. There are those who will perform as entertainers. And we who are able to discern can begin to see and have begun to see, or should I say have experienced, the entertainer who sings a song versus those who are singing the songs as they are led by the Spirit of Yahusha. There's a difference, O Yashar'al. One stirs and quickens our spirit and draws us closer. The other makes us want to just move and jump around to be seen. Don't do too much to draw us closer to think about the Most High Father Yahuah. Doesn't do a whole lot to bring our attention to Yahusha Mashyach. He goes on to say, giving thanks always for all to the Almighty One, the Father, in the name of our Master Yahusha. Ephesians 5:20. And hear these words, O Yashar'al, Ephesians 5:21, subjecting yourselves to each other in the fear of the Almighty One. You see, my brothers and sisters, one can take this passage and look at just a little and say, oh, that passage is just talking about a husband, how a husband treats his wife. Yahusha is the head husband, and the assembly is the bride. And if we are to be as Yahusha Mashyach, then we must understand what it is saying. Subjecting yourselves to each other in the fear of the Almighty One, understanding that the Almighty One's Spirit works in us, through us, one towards another. So there are times the husband will yield and listen to the wife, a sister, a brother, a child. If the Almighty Father is speaking through that wife, sister, brother, or child. Make no mistake, my brothers and sisters. Anyone who sit here and want you to think that they just saying to the husband, you my master and you my Lord and you're it, without qualifying specifically that they will yield to when the Spirit of Yahushua speaks through their wife, child, or another. We must know when to subject ourselves to one another when the Spirit of Yahuah. And when we have the fear of Yahuah, then we seek to have a discerning eyes and ears, to respond. It's not telling us to be passive. and just yield to and scratch. If I speak, you speak. If I gave you the courtesy, you give me the courtesy. It's not talking about quid pro quo. It's talking about discerning when the Spirit of Yahusha is speaking through us one towards another. O Yashar'al. Let me also read these words, my brothers and sisters. Let me also point to these. Acts 17:24 says, Yahuah who made the world and all that is in it, this one being master of heaven and earth, does not dwell in dwellings made with hands. There's a lot of chatter as people look at end time prophecies, chatter regarding the third temple made with hands. How many of us can clearly say that the dwelling place of the Most High is us, that we are that house? Are you not aware of 1 Pt. 4:17? When he says judgment begins at the house of Yahuah? We are that house, my brothers and sisters. And even during the time when they built the edifice, the buildings, was that not a time of obedience? So did we focus on the building, the structure? Or did we focus on the time of Yashar'al coming together with leadership and obedience? Maybe our focus was on the wrong temple, the wrong vessel. Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al, hear these words. As the nation of set-apart children awaken, the dwelling place that is of most priority during these end times is these vessels which house our inward man that is joined with Yahusha, that is made alive by the quickening power of the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name. 2 Corinthians 6:16 reads, what union has the dwelling place of the Almighty One with idols? For you are a dwelling place of the living Almighty One. As the Almighty One has said, I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I shall be their Almighty One, and they shall be my people. Also consider the life in Colossians 3:16. It says, let the word of Messiah dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in wisdom, singing with pleasure in your hearts to the Master, in psalms and songs and praise and spiritual songs. My brothers and sisters, if you had the word of Messiah dwelling in you richly, do you think that he would want his word dwelling in you richly without you knowing his name? I say again, Restoring Dominion, Part 4, Rise of Yahusha. It is the time to recognize the importance of Yahusha Mashyach. It is time to discern and move accordingly. My brothers and sisters, what say you? What say you on these matters, my brothers and sisters? We who are chosen will demonstrate the meaning of restored dominion. Some of us hunger for it. Some of us thirst for it. Some of us claim to have it, but we lack the discipline to walk in the fullness of the Spirit of Yahusha guiding us. We lack the discipline of recognizing the life in the scriptures. Consider these words, my brothers and sisters. John 14:12. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he shall do also. And greater works than these he shall do, because I go to my Father. And many people say, well, how could there be one if he's going to his Father? My brothers and sisters, understand that he could have very well also said, I return and step away from demonstrating physically as you see me now, and you will see my spirit working in you, through you, one towards another. And make no mistake, when he say my Father, he's identifying Yahuah as spirit everywhere at all times. When it is Yahusha, he's demonstrating that I am the living word of Yahuah, physically among you. I am the living word of Yahuah coming to you as a result of the sacrifice and resurrection. I am the living word of Yahuah coming to you in spirit as the Father has designated. We will grow to understand these dynamics, my brothers and sisters. Let me ask you, when he talks about greater works than these, what work do you believe will take place during end times? Consider the final exodus and possible martyrdom for Yahusha's name. Also consider what it will take for the 144,000 Hebrews and great multitude mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter to come together in unity and fulfill what is written. Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al, the time is now for us to understand why we must begin to hear, listen, and see what the Almighty Father Yahuah is saying to us through the Spirit of Yahusha, and see what the Almighty Father is showing us through the Spirit of Yahusha. For looking at the light of Yahusha, looking upward, discerning his living words, his guidance, recognizing what he's bringing to remembrance, recognizing how he connects the living word and make it alive to us, how he make alive the scriptures before us. The time is now to recognize those realities. My brothers and sisters, what I want you and invite you to do as end times ramp up, make no mistake, the cries of the children of Yahuah are heard. The cries that are according to what is written. Make no mistake, he knows all, he hears all, he sees all. One thing's for sure, there is a lot of individuals, include myself, we want to know what is the next step. We might have some generalization, we may have quite a bit. But as the scriptures say, we prophesy in part, we speak in part. So the part that's missing, we hunger for. I'm saying this to say this, my brothers and sisters. Look around as one that is hungry for truth, that thirsts after righteousness and set-apartness. Who's filling your glass with the living water, the living words from the Almighty Father? Who's filling your glass with that living water, the word of Yahuah? Who's providing you with the most bread from Yahusha Mashyach? Are you not aware that it speaks of Yahusha being the bread of life? For I submit to you, there are glasses with water with much impurities and dirt and sands and rocks and distractions in it. And if you take those impurities, those mistakes out of it, you find you don't have as much water as you thought you had. The same with bread. There's bread that has come before us that's filled with additives and fillers. We even see a practical demonstration in our food sources, my brothers and sisters. And there's bread that's made by the hands of those who have cracked the wheat, ground the wheat, and baked the bread accordingly, whether unleavened or leavened. And so what I'm saying, O Yashar'al, whoever provides you with the bread that have less additives or no additives, whoever provides you with water that has minimum rocks and impurities in it, that means where the rocks and impurities are removed, that means there's more water coming from that person. That means there's more nutritious bread coming from that person. So I'm saying this, O Yashar'al, for such a time as this, we will discover, coming away from compromising teachings, practices, compromising communities, camps, and fellowships, the Almighty Father will bring those who focus and look upward to the Savior, Yahusha Mashyach, who is indeed the word of Yahuah. For Yahuah is the Savior. Yahusha is the Savior. And there's no other. So in order to understand this, my brothers and sisters, they must be one. Otherwise, you find yourself in the category of those who will dismiss Yahusha Mashyach. You want to witness restoring dominion among brothers and sisters? Then you will come to discern the words I just spoke. My brothers and sisters, let me take you. Ignoring the Almighty Yahuah's instruction will prove to be fatal. Disobedience brings discipline, and in some cases, it can be a discipline unto death. It is important to know why we must hear and listen. Consider these words, Matthew 11:15. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Let him hear. What do you hear, O Yashar'al? Revelation 2:17 say, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. To him who overcomes, I shall give some of the hidden manna to eat, and I shall give him a white stone, and on the stone a renewed name written, which no one knows except him who receives it. Hear, O Yashar'al. It is important for us to understand that the Most High would not invite us or order us to hear without giving us the ability to do so. Yashar'al, dominion requires everlasting life. Let us discern and obey Abba Yahuah. In other words, do you think someone that is not a possessor of everlasting life will have dominion over you? I think not, my brothers and sisters. Remember, there's the literal and there's the spiritual. As I present scriptures to you, one might say, oh, he's just cherry picking this. That means this. This scripture means that. Remember when the Almighty Father, his word in the person of Yahusha said that he will give everlasting life. That we will demonstrate and are capable of demonstrating a fountain of water springing up out of us, reflecting everlasting life. I submit to you, so that does not mean we stop at the literal in the text from Genesis to Revelation. We must recognize the spiritual. And we will find that as the scriptures are made alive, there is endless encounters that we will come. Scriptures that will say things that may be different but will not conflict. Now, if they conflict, then the Spirit of Yahusha is not in that. If they are contradiction, is not in that. So we must pray and ask, how can we receive these words without them being a contradiction? Case in point, when it reads in Isaiah that I am the Savior and there is no other one besides me, and then we read that Yahusha is the Savior, if we ask, how can this be without contradiction, then they are one. And if someone say, well, who gives you the authority to say that? Well, think about, no, don't think, research the scriptures. When the taught ones asked the Messiah to show him the Father, and he said, have I not been with you? Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, connecting as we see the scriptures. If somebody say, I got this out of the scripture, somebody say, I got this out of that passage. If they embrace, if they can connect, then this is a part of the demonstration of the everlasting life that can spring up as a fountain by the word of the Almighty Father. Someone might say, you're doing a lot of talking. Let me read a passage to you, O Yashar'al. Consider John 4:13 and 14. Yahusha answered and said to her, everyone drinking of this water shall thirst again. That was literal water. He said, but whoever drinks of the water I give him shall certainly never thirst. That's the spiritual water. And the water that I give him shall become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. And if you search the scriptures, my brothers and sisters, you will begin to see the life and all that the Most High has for us, for end times require it. My brothers and sisters, remember, there is the literal, there is the spiritual. What say you, Yashar'al? Individuals who demonstrate obedience to Abba Yahuah contributes to the rise of Yahusha. You see, it's in our obedience that we lift up Yahusha. It's in our walking filled with the Spirit as he so made possible that we lift up Yahusha. It's recognizing Yahuwah's plan from beginning to end. It's embracing the words from the Almighty Father and walking in obedience to those words. It's discerning him working in us one towards another. These actions contribute to the rise of Yahusha. These actions contribute towards the lifting and magnifying of the light of Yahuah. And we will find that when we go to that common light, that common ground, this is where we are gathered. This is where we meet up. Whether it be literally, physically in the final Exodus, literally or physically in that last place that the Most High will have us to be before we face physical death, before we become martyrs. Whatever the case may be, O Yashar'al, we will know that in obedience to the living instructions, to the words from the Almighty Father, this is how we lift up Yahusha, and this is how we are drawn together in unity. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, remember these words, for they are critical, as with all scriptures. Let me read Luke 8th chapter, verse 16 through 18. Luke, the 8th chapter, verse 16 through 18. It reads as follows, and no one having lit a lamp covers it with a vessel or puts it under a bed, but he puts it on a lampstand so that those coming in can see the light. For whatever is hidden shall be revealed. Whatever is secret shall be known and come to light. Therefore take heed how to hear. For whoever possesses, to him more shall be given. And whoever does not possess, even what he thinks he possessed shall be taken from him. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. And it's not saying possess just to have, but knowing what you have and utilizing what you have. For see, the possessions that the Most High has given us is for a reason, it's for a purpose, it's for a function, it's for actions. To hoard it, to hide it under a bed, to hoard it for ourselves will come with pain and regret. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, when Yahusha is lifted up, we must focus on him. We must be mindful of what the scriptures instruct us to do. There is a reason. Time is valuable, O Yashar'al. And if we allow ourselves to be overtaken by distractions, no matter how severe they may be, we will find ourselves moving astray if our focus is not on him. Consider Proverbs 4:25, where we are instructed to let our eyelids look forward. Our eyelids look straight before us. You see, in death and sickness and disease, in the coming away from people that we have been so accustomed to being around, in the pain and the emotional stress and the mental challenges that we face, it's going to be important, O Yashar'al. My instructions to you, to me, to us, is that we understand looking forward and pressing into what the Spirit is guiding us to do. Otherwise, we will find ourselves captured by the multiple funerals and deaths that will occur in these end times. We will find ourselves distracted and missing the words that are coming before us and what we must do. Let me also read Proverbs 6:4 that say, give no sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids, my brothers and sisters. Some will take this as the literal, saying you can't go to sleep. My brothers and sisters, I say to you, this is talking about do not take your focus off him. Do not say, I need to rest, thinking about him. Never pause. Keep the Most High Father Yahuah in the name of Yahusha on your mind, on our minds, always. My brothers and sisters, more on lifting up Yahusha and focusing on him. Consider this, O Yashar'al, in Isaiah 26 chapter, verse 3 and 4. Isaiah 26 chapter, verse 3 and 4. It reads, "The one steadfast of mind you guard in perfect peace, for he trusts in you." So if we keep him on our minds, my brothers and sisters, if we understand that we must lean to the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name, we cannot come to the Father except by Yahusha. So I say again, the need to lift up Yahusha is paramount. It's important. It's critical. It goes on to say in the 4th verse, "Trust in Yahuah forever, for in Yah, Yahuah is a rock of ages." We must understand the dynamics of the instructions, the life and what is being said. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, restoring dominion. There's so much to learn, to hear, to do, to receive, to give. End times will prove it is time to begin discovering the 144,000 in great multitude, for unity comes. How do we discover? We begin through process of vetting, examining one another, discerning one another. And then we begin to see the actions of one another. There are those who will fulfill the 144,000, and they will have with strong conviction the representation of the specific tribe that is mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter. They will have strong convictions of their place and position in the 144,000. There are those who will not identify a specific tribe as one of the 12, but will identify being a part of the tribe of Yashar'al, the great multitude, those that are gathered together, grafted together, Hebrews and Gentiles, Abrahym and Goym, that are made one, who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, that are made one. Why and how? By the Spirit of the Almighty Father, who draws them to Yahusha Mashyach, by receiving Yahusha. My brothers and sisters, what say you on these matters? Yashar'al, prepare to witness the power of a set-apart assembly. Prepare to understand the meaning of assembling together. Prepare to witness a dismantling of a puzzle that has been put together incorrectly. In other words, there have been people in positions that they're not in their right position. There are members of the body of Yashar'al that are not where they're supposed to be or operating in the task that has been given them because they want to be a moray. They want to be a priest. Some will even use the word they want to be a king. They want to be this. They're coveting and envying specific tasks that may have been given to others. Many members of this body exist, and during these end times, the assembly will come together in unity, and the puzzle will come together whole and complete. Consider these words, my brothers and sisters. Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. Let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as in the habit of some, but encouraging, and so much more as you see the day coming near. Listen to this, O Yashar'al. Listen very carefully. We're not supposed to forsake the assembling together, and many people will throw this on you to try to force you, manipulate you, or coerce you into satisfying their hidden agenda and becoming part of their assembly or group or community. Make no mistake, the assembling together will require it. At many times we will see an individual being pulled from one group or from one location and placed in another because they were in the wrong place. So in the assembling together, it requires at times, my brothers and sisters, coming away from a group, a camp, or a community and getting in place, in position where you're supposed to be. So don't let someone coerce you into assembling. You understand it is important to discern what Yahusha is saying. If you are a thumb, be near the hand. Don't be trying to creep up and pretend to be a spine. Don't try to be an ankle. If you're the kidney, Yashar'al, or Yashar'al, the assembling of a set-apart nation will happen. Who is aware of Psalms 133? Consider these words as we yearn for the Almighty Father to bring unity among us. Psalms 133, 1 through 3. See how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity, like the precious oil of the head running down from the beard of Aharon running down on the collar of his robe, like the dew of Hermon that comes down from the mountains of Sion. For there Yahuah commanded the blessings, life forever. My brothers and sisters, as we witness end times ramp up, we will see that end times will prove responsibilities in dominion. It will prove the dominion that is being quickened within us as we were designed by the Almighty Father. And as this occurs, we will begin to recognize parts of the plan. We will see plans that link up as we begin to merge into greater numbers. Now, make no mistake, I am aware of COVID-19 or the coronavirus, how it is saying social distancing. I'm aware how we are and have moved to our homes under the instructions from those that are in positions to control the media. Make no mistake, the power and might of the Almighty Father will present his chosen leaders, and there will become a power of healing, a power of being able to rebuke what is wicked, a power of release. You see, my brothers and sisters, as the Most High began to gather his children, soon and very soon, the world leaders, the government leaders, the world leaders will recognize judgment will intensify and continue to intensify until they acknowledge who the true Abrahym, the true Hebrews are, until they recognize and acknowledge we are at a point where things will get worse and intensify. The judgment will come just as they did in the days of old with Mashyach or with Moshe. The plagues, the disease, judgment came. We will see it intensify. We are beyond types and shadows, my brothers and sisters. Make no mistake, the acknowledging who the true Hebrews are is a plus and a must, and it will come to be. And it will bring a lightening up. Now, I'll speak on this more in the coming days. Famine and pestilence. To the set-apart children of Yashar'al, these are elements of our discipline. It weakens our flesh, our mind, to where we rise up in the spirit of Yahusha. And we manage this mind, this flesh. To those that are not set apart, those who are not the children of Yahuah, they have their appointed times. Don't concern yourself with the outer court. The inner court is the body of set apart children of Yahuah, the sealed children of Yahuah. Make no mistake, there are plans, there are details, and there are processes. My brothers and sisters, if you're tuning in for the first time, you will know that I presented highlights of plans that contribute towards deliverance, relocation, and lifestyle changes, that there will be people included and those left behind. The need to build set-apart team leaders that have been vetted, proven to be chosen by the Spirit of the Almighty Father, walking in the Spirit of the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name, to develop an information and resource center, virtual and physical, as we are led by the Almighty Father. You see, my brothers and sisters, once the world leaders acknowledge who the true Hebrews are, once they exempt us from their rules, to make way for us to gather and fulfill what is written. When they do that, we will see the opportunity to develop information and resource centers, to provide the information so that we can begin to move and be mobile and gathered to the place we should be. And sure, a time will come when they will resent that. The time will come when we will be martyrs for Yahusha's name. But make no mistake, all that is necessary for the gathering of Yashar'al, set-apart Yashar'al, will come to be. White Rose family to build a team with diverse skills, teaching and mentoring the young, the uninformed, the unlearned. To purchase land in Virginia as an exit point. And purchase could be through money or through the government relinquishing the land where we can gather until we are transported. Now I'm speaking mainly of Yashar'al that is in the Western Hemisphere. For those outside the Western Hemisphere, as I stated before, on many occasions, that I believe you will be gathered to the outermost border that points to the promised land, and that there will be chosen elders, counselors, leaders, that the Spirit of the Most High Father, in the name of Yahusha, will direct. Soon and very soon, my brothers and sisters, things will come together. All obstacles will be removed for Yashar'al to fulfill what must come to be. White Rose family, a plan to identify and support safe zones as we find ourselves migrating, identifying the camps, the community that we can stop and refreshen and fuel up as we journey towards the direction the Most High is guiding us. To provide guidance and support for completing the journey for those who will fulfill the final exodus. To provide guidance for the inner court for those who will indeed grow to understand that the inner court are the set-apart children of Yashar'al. To understand, to demonstrate, to provide instructions, to provide leadership, to provide services as we find ourselves waiting on the physical return of Yahushua Mashyach. Yashar'al, or Yashar'al. I won't spend time on this slide. It is a slide that you see before you, basically saying that there's a cost for all things that are done, whether it be financial, whether it be demonstrating, whether it be resources. I invite you to consider identifying the talents that the Most High has given you. Use it or lose it. I present before you a means in which you can begin to pursue supporting White Rose family if you should desire. My brothers and sisters, it's time for us to recognize the rise of Yahusha, the Almighty Yahuah's word. It's time for us to understand there are no retakes. There are no rewind buttons, save those on these media platforms. But we cannot take the reality of what we did yesterday and do it again with precision. Each action, each encounter presses out its own history. We are told to look forward. So let us walk in obedience. When we are given remembrance, we are also told how the Spirit of Yahushua will remind us. We also see in Revelations with the assemblies, there are two instances when he say, remember where you've fallen. So there are times to remember. So history isn't wrong. There are times to look at the history of our forefathers as a schoolmaster telling us what to do and what to avoid. But in terms of rewinding, we will see, my brothers and sisters, the benefits of pressing forward and looking forward and walking in obedience and identifying what he has to say. We will understand that it's not about playing it safe. This is not a game. It's not about, well, I don't want to cause any ripples or waves. People are looking for living water. People are looking for the bread of life. People, as in the children of Yahuah, that are drawn to Yahusha. So we must look at what it takes to yield and be contributors to the rise of Yahusha. and we shall. With that, I say to you, my brothers and sisters, I salute your patience, your tolerance. I salute your zeal and desire to understand and embrace all that is set apart. Again, I salute your patience. I say to you, my brothers and sisters, our deliverance draw near in the midst of all that is about to unfold. Make no mistake, things are not going to return to the way they were, as people are saying, as people are desires of. We have entered into the final days, as it is written. These are end times. We have moved beyond types and shadows. I come to you in the name of Yahusha. My name is Symmanayah, and I know it's not about me. It is about worshiping and obeying the Almighty Father Yahuah. And this can only be done through Yahusha Mashyach. Pray and watch, O Yashar'al. On that note, I say to you, thank you. Todah Rabbah. Shalom.